One thing I know about you, and you started by saying that you're typically not in any mess, but for some reason, I feel like you're in the middle of mess that you may not have necessarily created because, as you know, the Salt and Pepper documentary is out on Lifetime, and a lot of people are watching it, but I'm sure you have not. You're not in there. You're not mentioned in the press. I know that they recently did an interview where they were questioned about that on the Breakfast Club, and they said that they were not allowed to speak your name, but that came by way of the lawsuits. So there's a lot to unpack here. The first thing I want to ask you is, have you seen the Salt and Pepper doc?
No, I haven't. I have not seen it. I stand by my statement. I will not support something that does not support me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a part of the brand, and I was a part of building the brand, and I have every right to not support it because of the fact that it didn't support me. And people should know that that was a dream of all of ours, and that was discussed. We discussed a movie of our life back in the 90s. Our dreams were coming true, but it seemed like when those things would come true, or come to fruition, I would be left out of it. But I helped to build it. So yes, I had no, I was just, it was, for me, it was very disappointing.
You met the girls back in what, 1986? Is that when you met them and then joined the group?
87,
Okay, so
87.
1987, you meet them. You guys, the three of you, become a part of hip hop history. The first
There was
all female hip hop group to reach that level of success right out the gate, right?
Yes, this was I mean, it was, for me, when I was brought into the group, I was told what my role was, and that was I would be DJing for this group. Um, and Herbie, who brought me in, his intentions, because I asked him again, what was your intentions for me? He said, I wanted Run DMC and Jam Master Jay. I wanted Houdini. In my head, that's a group. So fulfilling those filling those holes in and doing what needed to be done to make that happen, the work that it takes to get to that kind of a status of Run DMC, it takes those elements.
So when you joined the group in the 80s and 90s, if I could recall, I mean, you were as much a part of the group as they were, right? I mean, at first when they started to rap, when the girls first started to rap, you weren't rapping, but then later on you did start to rap and write, correct?
I rapped, I produced, I danced, I interviewed, I took pictures, I did all the things that it would take to build the brand right there with them.
And so at what point did it go from you're a part of the group to you no longer need to show up? I mean, when did that change happen? And what
You know
how did
what?
it happen?
Herbie was the creator, and he was the one who brought this together, and he was the one that brought me in with the original intention. And I don't think Salt and Pepper adopted Herbie's intention. I think they, once Herbie left the picture, they began to feel that, okay, this is, it is what it is, and now, this, it's almost like they inherited. I mean, this is just my speculation. They inherited Herbie's situation because at some point Herbie was in, and then Herbie was out, and he's the creator.
When did it like when Herbie was out, was there a meeting where they said, "Look, we don't want to go in this direction anymore. We're going a different
No,
direction."
no, they did. I've had a couple of conversations where Salt had said, you're just the DJ. But here's my confusion, and I can see where everybody else is confused. If I'm just the DJ, why am I building this brand? Why am I working like you are? If I'm just a DJ, I'm on the stage just DJing. There was a whole lot more work other than just DJing and building this brand. You don't just come out the studio have a record and it becomes a hit. It's a building, you have to build, it's a process that builds that hit. And we've had quite a few. So um, I think her intentions and her actions um, was two different things. Their intentions and their actions were two different things. And I was living under the premise of what I was originally told when I was brought in. Um, I lived up to that. And if the other problem is a contract, no, there was never a contract. Um,
Between you and them?
yeah, there was never a contract. And when I wised up and wanted a contract, that was a threat. They felt that was a threat to them somehow, especially if I opened my mouth about, you know, divvying this up right. I wanted it to be a third for sure. But if it wasn't going to be a third, we need to justify my
The amount of time that you're investing in it.
yes, my investment, my equity. And for years I had been wanting to define my role, but bringing it up would just be, it was a headache for them.
But why
And
was
you,
it
as
a
you
headache?
can see,
Was it a headache because they were selfish and didn't want to share? Was it a headache because they felt like you were out of place for even thinking you deserved it? Where was it a headache?
yeah, from what I'm gathering, they think I'm out of place for asking for anything that I deserve. But they're not looking back. I don't think they're seeing, I know you, I don't know if you guys have seen the clip that's been going around. There's a lot of clips that are coming out that we actually discussed that. Like, you haven't seen the work that I've done? How could you not see it? How could you not see the songs that I'm on? People think that I'm on What a Man. I am on 15 songs. 15 songs. 3 of them our hits.
Mm-hmm.
I've produced minimally, but I have produced, I have written minimally, but it's for, I mean, on our most successful album, very necessary. So I can't see how they don't see that. But there is a lot of confusion that I had. And I would ask those questions. And when I would ask, as people know, diehard fans that have been around and have seen those old shows, like the old Salt-N-PEPA show, I asked then.
And that was just that was just met with resistance. No.
It was met with the fact of what you said. They just did not see the worth of doing that. How do you not see the worth? Because they don't even see me like, they don't see me as a relevant, important, integral part of this brand, and that's crazy to me.
But the part that's crazy for me is how don't they see it when the fans do? I mean, Wendy Williams just recently talked about on her show, and she said, "For me, if it's not the three, it doesn't make sense." So how is it that they were unable to see what everybody in the culture saw?
If you can get that answer out of them, please do. This day that has come, I really, that's not something I wanted to happen. I was all in. I never wanted this to go down this way, but I knew it would, because how you going to use me and not pay me? The other thing is, they basically said I was an employee and a DJ for hire, but they never paid me for none of those appearances and none of those photo sessions and none of those appearances on those albums and studio times and countless hours of interviews and building this brand. There's employees got paid. Was I your little slave girl? Like, this is really intense, because I grew up and I figured it out. And when I started to mention it, it was a threat to them. You see how they're reacting right now.
When did it start to dawn on you that you were being used?
Oh my God. I would say the 90s. There was a complaint that was documented on the Behind the Music that was done in the late 90s. And I exposed that because I just couldn't put my finger on what it was. And imagine being kept out of the board room, or being kept away from negotiations that have to do with you, and you have to figure those things out.
Mm.
Um, I felt that back then, but I kept going because I wanted to. I needed to be 100% concrete on what was going, like what was happening, how they were handling the business, and also how I was involved and how they saw me and how they were going to do it. But it wasn't until, I would say, this last run with them, which was 2013, 2014 on, we had come back together again. And I knew there was something there, but I just bypassed it because I'm like, look, this is the vehicle that we built together. And there's opportunity for us to figure it out. And maybe we'll figure it out along the way. I'm not going to trip. I'm going to get back in and we're going to figure it out. And I was telling Peppa that. I was like, when can we talk about this? It was always a threat. And I got to a point, thankfully, that I was completely just, if they're not going to talk to me, then this is definitely going to be a wrap. Like, we have to talk. So you saw me on that show. Ask them in front of the cameras, can we please have a mediator? Can we please sort this out? Can we please figure out how to dissect this properly that's beneficial for all of us and the fans? Their response was no. We're not sitting down with a mediator. We don't need to rehash anything because this is what it is. It's what it's going to be. They said that. And that's when you saw me get up and walk away. I walked away. I didn't quit. I walked away from that conversation broken and again and let down and not sure what was going to come of it. But knowing that we still had a lot of equity here. And it was important to nurture it for me. I just needed to have that sit down and they refused it.
Were the fans ever thought about during this whole process from them?
I can't speak for them, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like for an example of that is when we did part ways, when they did terminate me, I should say, I waited for them to make a statement and they hadn't, they wouldn't. I felt it was owed to the fans to know that, to know the truth so that, they can know. What they did do was continue on using the images of me after the termination to sell tickets. So there was no that was the reason for me to go forth with filing a lawsuit, because it not only was it unfair to me, but it was unfair to the public, and I just think that was unnecessary. I felt like it should have been. The fans were asking me what was happening. I put the statements out. They
Well,
didn't. I
let's talk about the lawsuit. So August 2019, you filed the lawsuit. This was around the time where this was from the removal of the New Kids on the Block tour, right? So when you filed the lawsuit, it was because they hadn't paid you for money that they owed you?
Yeah. Monies from prior a prior project. I can't really disclose a lot about this because it's meant to be confidential, but I had every right to file that claim, and in the end, it was a settlement.
Mm. And so part of that settlement, you can't talk about it, right?
No.
But were you sad in the fact that you had invested your whole life into something that you then had to go and fight for? Like you had to fight for being paid what you felt was just due, given that you had invested so much of your life in it.
Yeah, yeah. It was a fight. It was an unnecessary fight. Let me just say this: I had love for my group. I had love for them. I had love for the legacy. And there was a purpose when the seed was planted, when they brought me in, there was a seed planted in me. And I saw to it that this would be nurtured. And I did my part. I did my part. They refused to acknowledge that. That's crazy to me.
Do you think they were jealous?
I don't know. I don't know. I asked myself, I don't know.